and welcome to 21st Century Saints, this wonderful summer's evening. I am struggling with the heat, but I'm not complaining. It's absolutely wonderful to have some lovely weather here in bonny Scotland. Today is the 18th of July, 2021, and we are here tonight with, I'm your host tonight, Alana Bryce, and this is my co-host.
I'm Jane Christie. Hey, everyone.
And tonight we are joined by the lovely Rachael Henderson.
Hello.
So, when Alana says it's hot tonight, we Scots are not built for this kind of heat. We're experiencing a heat wave, and it is grim, people. So we're kind of lethargic, we're kind of tired, and we're a little bit,
Yeah.
little bit.
My nephew's wife's mum was over visiting from Germany, and in the garden yesterday, I'm saying how hot it is, and she's like, "This isn't hot to me." Like, I mean, she's English, but she's lived in Germany for some time now, and I'm like, "No, this is hot." I think it's the mugginess. I think that's for me what the problem is. It's not so much the heat; it's I'm trying to think of a suitable word that everyone will understand, like clammy, muggy.
Yeah, we've a lot of Scottish words for.
Yeah.
We've got more Scottish words for the bad weather than we do for this, because this is just weird. But yes, like you say, we have Rachael. We have our Rachael here with us in the studio tonight, in our virtual studio, and Rachael is the newest member of the 21st Century Saints team. So when you guys are chatting with us online or interacting with social media, it's usually going to be Rachael who's replying or posting and making sure that we're keeping in touch with you all about what you're doing. Rachael, do you want to say hi?
Yeah. Hi. It'll not be me who's on episodes, just so everyone's aware. Like, I'm behind the scenes. I'm not going to be on every episode.
But we do need to introduce our audience to you, because it's kind of, Mormonism is kind of niche, right? If you're Mormon or Mormon adjacent, or maybe you're studying, and it is a really fascinating subject, but for someone to be involved like this is very unusual. So our audience, I know, are gonna love meeting you. So we wanted to introduce you to our audience. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, all those good things?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I'm Rachael. I'm 24, and I was born in Airdrie and lived in Airdrie all my life. In fact, stayed in pretty much the same house all my life until I was 20 when I moved in here. And I studied sales. I studied marketing at uni, and I've now got a sales and marketing job, and that's what I enjoy. And I met Jane because I'm Jane's son's girlfriend. So I've known Jane for a good few years now.
Yeah. Rachael is family. Yeah. And I feel like that doesn't do it justice, because not only is Rachael family, Rachael is a family favourite. Our kids so love Rachael, but also Alana, your Daisy. Really
absolutely adores her. Yeah, I do too, I have to say.
Thank you.
I was always going to burst into song there when you said family. I was going to sing, "We are family."
And the thing is, Rachael is, I mean, it sounds like such a cliche. You know, that thing that I hate that we do with women is put women on a pedestal. But, when someone is really talented, and has the audacity to be nice.
Stop.
It's all true.
So, the things that you haven't mentioned about you, Rachael is a very talented gymnast, right? And
Absolutely.
teaches as a hugely popular coach. Like, I mean, kids love you, right?
Yeah, I've been coaching for years. Like, I obviously did gymnastics when I was younger. I got involved in that when I started coaching. I was like 13, so I've been coaching for a long, long time. And even kind of through uni, and now that I'm working, I always kind of like to keep myself involved in that because I do enjoy it.
And you care. You know, you're caring for family members.
Yes, I care for my gran just now. My grandpa passed away last year, just before lockdown started, actually. So it's kind of been a tough year, but I've got good aunts, my sister, my mum. We're all kind of working together to look after my gran just now. So yeah.
And I mean, I think those things are, you know, not only talented, not only showing, you know, that you have this kind of personality that is willing to do things that, you know, maybe everybody isn't so keen on doing. I just think it sort of speaks a lot to, you know, like Alana and I, between us, we're sort of, well, of course, that's just Rachel. That's, you know, this is what we can expect from Rachel. You know, Rachel is very, very well loved. Rachel is also, so I'm trying to think how to phrase this tactfully. So my son is, you know, he's my boy. Rachel is, to be able to, I think, you know, for your firstborn son, and you have all of these hopes, dreams, you want them to be happy in life, and, you know, for Rachel to be the person who he has chosen, it makes me really, really proud. And
Can you make me cry?
well, you know, because, you know, I just think, you know, whenever you're like, you made a good choice there. You made a good choice there, son. So yeah, we love you. Okay. None of that explains though why how we got to where we're at, where you're part of this crazy team. So tell us about what faith looks like for you. Tell us a little bit about your story. Have you grown up with a faith background? What has that been, and what's that look like?
Okay, no problem. So my parents went to church as children, but as teenagers decided to stop. But both of their parents, so both my grandparents, both sets of grandparents, have always went to church, and that's always what I've known. Both Christian, same faith. And I started going. Me and my sister would stay with her grandparents at the weekend on a Saturday night and end up going to church on the Sunday with them. And that kind of happened from as long as I can remember. And
so that's Church of Scotland, right? That's
one side was Church of Scotland, and the other grandparents were evangelical Christian.
Right. Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be totally honest, like I've been to church pretty much all my life, and I don't know a lot about different denominations of Christianity.
Yeah.
I've just kind of went to the churches and heard the similar messages and accepted those messages, and not really compared or known really what the difference is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally does. That was when I was younger, that was kind of my background as well. You found a place that you liked how worship looked, or you had a sort of community of people, or you know, family ties. That's where you went. And I don't really think a lot about the nuances of how, you know, maybe what the differences in faith looked like. So evangelicals, I think, are very, very similar to, I think, Mormonism. We can see sort of links there, but which would horrify evangelicals and Mormons alike. But so yeah, you find your place, you go to your place.
And you just go to church. So that's kind of always been the case, like when going with grandparents, whatever. And me and my sister, as we got older and kind of maybe into our teenage years, we were never forced. I don't know if that's the right word. I mean, it was never ever. It was totally our decision always to go and to stay, and that's what we did. And now that we're a bit older, we now go with my aunts and cousins, because again, just kind of going and trying their church and the way that they worship was something that me and Jennifer, that's my sister, really enjoyed, and kind of just have went with them since. So that's probably been about the last 5 or so years that we've went with them. So I've changed church as I've got older, but always kind of the same faith.
So I want to ask about what I want to ask a little bit about your church in a minute, because when anytime you've mentioned something that's happening or an experience that you've had, I've thought that is so cool. We've described it as holy envy. That sounds really nice.
Yeah.
So, but what I'd like to know is, growing up, going to church in Scotland isn't super common, right? So while Alana is like more or less the only Mormon in your school, right? More or less.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Most of my family were the Mormons, and then obviously as we got a bit older, some younger ones started coming up. But yeah, there weren't many other Mormons in my high school at all, or school.
And that's what we would expect. There are things like a Christian fellowship often in schools, so you've got more of a Christian presence, but it's still not super common. You're maybe talking about maybe a handful of kids who are sort of active Christians. So what did that look like for you growing up?
I must admit, now that I'm older, I can admit that I think going through high school, my close friends were aware that I went to church, but I was a bit guilty of having my church family self, and then I was not a completely different person, but not the same person in school, if that makes sense. I was aware of the like Christian fellowship in my high school. There was a club or whatever you'd want to call it, but I never went in school. I went to like church groups and youth groups out with school, like with my sister and a few friends. Like I said, my close friends knew that I went to church, but actually in school, I was a bit guilty of hiding that, which I'm a wee bit ashamed of now.
More familiar though, right? Because I think when you can I just shout
Hello,
out to
Hatchie.
I knew that was going to happen at some point.
He's got to get his minute of fame, right? It's got to be done.
This is I'm a grandparent to Hatchie. So if he's coming on the screen, I love that we don't have Daisy tonight because Daisy's out.
We're just doing so well at just staying out the back, but sorry.
Yeah, he loves this.
It's all good.
So yeah, what I think I'm kind of interested in is the fact that it's very, very common, and the guilt of sort of feeling like you are maybe have sort of two different sets of interests that maybe don't merge at school. What is keeping you going to church? Like what's the draw?
Now? Yeah.
Then when you were younger.
Oh, when I was younger. Do you know, I feel like I've just never really questioned it. I've just always enjoyed church. I've always enjoyed going. I go with my family. I like spending time with my family. I've had good experiences at church. I love church worship. I love music. There's just never been like a reason for me to stop. Do you know what I mean? I've not really ever questioned anything. Well, in saying that, maybe this past year has been a struggle for me personally, not getting to go to church and questioning things. But when I was younger, I just went with my family, went every Sunday, enjoyed it, and never didn't want to stop.
Yeah, I really relate to that. That had been my experience of going to church. I would pray from a very, very, when I say very young age, like 3. I remember praying. The first library books I would get were sort of about prayer, and so you've got this 6-year-old who's I don't know what the connection had been, but I always felt like I kind of knew. So I want to ask you about how faith has looked during the tough times. So you have had some loss in your life. Could you maybe speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. Do you want me to speak about specific people?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're entirely. If you're comfortable, if you could maybe talk about what losses look like and the part that faith has played for you.
Yeah. First kind of person that I'd lost in my life was my grandpa on my dad's side. And faith really helped at that time, and having a lot of family that go to church and stuff helped at that time. And he played a massive part in his church. And even just going to his funeral and just seeing how much he impacted people was amazing to me. And I really feel like having church family at that point really helped. When I compare that experience of losing my other grandpa on my mum's side, that was what I was talking about earlier, just on before lockdown. That was a different story, because that's why I think this year and not getting to go to church, I've kind of struggled with faith a little bit, because it just seemed like unfair.
Yeah.
So that was just before lockdown happened. Then lockdown happened, so he couldn't get a funeral. So, and he was the main carer for my gran, so we all had to start caring for my gran. There was no time to process anything. And then I think maybe in the last couple of months, or the start of this year, when we're coming out of lockdown, I started to realise church services were obviously online, and I wasn't watching every week. I have the Bible app on my phone. I used to read plans and read the Bible pretty much every day. I couldn't even tell you the last time I did that. Things just kind of started falling away.
And so do you think that was due to just the lockdown happening, or do you think your faith was shook a little bit with, losing your grandpa, or like?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both. I think me and my sister kind of talked about it. It was a bit like, well, why would you make this happen at that time? Why would we lose him for no reason? Like, don't mind me saying or going into detail, like if he had a fall and bumped his head and he was totally fine after that, and then a couple hours later we lost him. And it was a bit like, that's not fair. And then he doesn't get a funeral, that's not fair. And just not having answers, I think we've both really struggled with that.
And I think that's perfectly okay. I look at times in my life, obviously being brought up in religion, and there's times I've been so angry at God, and again, I think growing up in a faith, we're taught to just trust God and have faith that everything will work out. But I personally feel that it's okay to be angry with God. I've grew up thinking maybe that I'm wrong and that I shouldn't be angry at him. But I think we should be allowed to feel that. It's a part of, like you say, why did this happen? Why is it always, my dad lost his sister at 52, and that was so hard on all of our family. And my dad, it completely changed him, and my two cousins were left without their mum. They never got to see she never got to see her grandchildren growing up. Why, when there's so many bad people out there? That's things that was going through my head. There's so many bad people out there who are doing so many bad things, and they get to live a long life, and she's one of the good ones. So why have you taken her? And I still don't understand it. There's times I still feel annoyed at him, and I guess I'll never know, why her time was up. But I think it's perfectly okay. And that's something I've realised, that it's perfectly okay to have those feelings, of why, or why is it fair? Or like, as I say, I mean, I was so angry at God when my Aunt Helen died, so angry.
And I think you're speaking to something as well. Like, I often, Alana and I are speaking to the fact that particularly women in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, are really struggling with, what faith looks like right now, and what being away from church it's changed a lot. But we haven't really spoken a lot about, the loss and the grief that, the experience you have with that loss. We have, I guess I'm speaking more to Alana's experience here, but I mean, family members that are lost during the pandemic, whether related to the pandemic or not, devastating losses, where you can't grieve as a community. That's been horrific. Life's relationships, marriages, things that haven't been able to happen, that we don't get that time back.
Yeah.
And so anger is a stage of grief. And I think that it's like you say, God can handle that. It's God.
But I
Right?
think I've always grew up feeling that and again, this has a lot to do with my faith. I mean, I don't know what your religion teaches on that, but we were always kind of taught that, anger was not of God, that was Satan, and, that was Satan's influence. And I now realise, and I've said this before on the podcast, that's not in the case, that anger is a part of your emotions. It's okay to feel angry. I guess it's what you do with that anger, how you act upon that anger that really then calls into question. But for me to feel angry about something, I'm quite entitled to feel angry. So that's where, I grew up thinking I was such a bad person because I felt angry, and, I was wrong to feel angry. But I now realise, through the work I've done with mental health professionals, that it's normal to be angry.
Yeah.
So, would you be comfortable? I'd like to post a picture of your tattoo on our Instagram feed, if that's okay, because it is a good tattoo. Okay, it's a really good tattoo. Would you be comfortable with sharing with us the story behind that?
Of course, that's obviously another time in my life where I felt a bit angry, and how is that fair? So when I was 18, so I've been friends, I'll go back a bit further. I've had the same kind of group of friends all through high school. And when we were 18, one of my friends passed away. She had an asthma attack. Her name was Louise.
Do you want to tell us the circumstances around that? When was that? What were?
So it was New Year. Louise had quite bad asthma and problems with her asthma all through high school. And I'll be totally honest, I hadn't ever heard of someone who has passed away from an asthma attack, so it was complete shock. So we were meant to all be meeting at a friend's house at New Year for a party. She was seeing her family first, and then didn't come to the party, and obviously we just assumed she decided to stay with her family. And we heard the next day that she was in hospital and she was on life support. So she had an asthma attack and was taken into hospital. And I think the amount of time that she'd went without oxygen was just too long. And the decision was made to turn life support off. So all my friends, obviously, for that kind of period of time that she was on life support, where we kind of spent that time together, we stayed together. I think it was 2 days or one night we stayed together. And when we got that text, it was late at night, but not really a time that you would kind of hear the birds chirping, and it kind of went silent, and that's what we could hear. So in memory of Louise, we decided to get a tattoo, and it's of birds, and that's kind of the reason why we got it. So it's branches with all the birds. So there's 8 of us and one flying away, and Louise is the bird flying away. And then there's 8 of us left, and yeah.
How did your faith look when you've experienced so much loss at a really young age? Tell me how faith looks. What's keeping you having any kind of relationship with the faith?
It's helped in those times, as much as, like I said, with my most kind of recent loss before lockdown, that's obviously been a big hit. That's been a struggle. But before that, it's helped massively. And I think a big part of it for me is Christian music and worship at church, and how powerful the songs are. I think that that's not the only reason, obviously, that helps, but I think having those experiences, I just feel something during those times, and yeah.
This really fascinates me. This is what I was hoping that you would speak a little bit about, because your experience of faith, of worship through music, I think is very different from what we would experience. So, like Alana, Alana sings, Rachael sings. I mean, they can really sing. So I just get to sit and enjoy it, and I don't always know what you guys are talking about. But Alana, how would you describe music through worship in a Mormon congregation?
Nah. That's all I have. Genuinely. Now, don't get me wrong. I have to say, some of the songs are lovely. But to me, we're praising God. And I may get shot down for saying this. They're very dull and boring. I've been to some churches, where it's praise God and they're all, and I guess in our church, and that this may not be taught, this is just what I have in my head, that it's not as respectful to God, and things like that. But I don't know. I don't imagine that God wants us all just to be sitting there. I am a child of God. I mean, the singing in my ward, I really am going to get shot for saying this, is awful because people are miserable.
Yeah. Can I just jump in? We've got a comment from Josh.
Yeah, I just noticed
on our
that. Yep.
YouTube channel. Thank you for your comment, Josh. So for people who are just discovering our podcast, we are specifically speaking to the experience in the 21st century of Latter-day Saints here in the British Isles, but also around the world. So there's a lot of Americanisms that we kind of, it just doesn't really apply, or we can find a little bit weird, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So I am the active Mormon. Alana has taken a step back and we talk about lots.
I'd say at this stage more than a step back.
Yeah. And so we as friends, and who are the same wards, best friends, we speak to that tension. So that's where we're at, and we're introducing the new member of our team, Rachael, who's a NeverMo, has never been a member of the church, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the weirdness and things that we see in urban legends and things. So yeah, we're just talking about worship music, and Alana, you know what? I don't think you're alone. We don't. So I know that other faiths don't have. It's weird to me at first that someone. So when you go to, Rachael, a Mormon congregation, you're going to find someone who's playing an instrument. We could possibly. It would only be a piano or an organ. But those are the only two permitted instruments. Although I have seen violin and oboe. I think if it's
Yeah, no, we've had someone playing the flute as well. As long as it's quite
But you would never have a guitar, right?
Not in a sacrament meeting. I don't imagine.
This blows my mind. Like, why is that? Why is that a rule?
Because not respectful enough, not worshipful enough.
Because we're worshipping God and the sacredness of it, and blah 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 blah.
It's weird to us too. So while we could even not have a background music to sing along with the hymn, what we cannot do without ever is someone to conduct the music. And all these, Alana, do you want to demonstrate what that looks like? Because this is so weird.
I don't know which way to go.
Okay, so someone's just standing up at the front doing that. And
no one knows what I'm even doing unless you're musical. You do. I mean, some people say even though they're not musical, that it helps them keep the beat, but it's like, really? No. I did it for a long time, and I mean, I don't, as much as I sing, I don't fully understand music. I don't read music, can read basic stuff, but half the people sitting there have not got a clue what you're even doing. I mean, we have people who race away on with the song. You're like, no, I'm keeping the time. Look at me. But people just sit with their heads in the hymn books because they're so boring.
Because they are boring. It's
Well,
like,
I have to say, there's a couple of little upbeat ones, but
give
even
me
then,
one. Tell me one.
Put your shoulder to the wheel, push along. You know, that's a little bit more upbeat. There's a couple of little upbeat ones, but
Okay.
no,
Yeah, okay.
I just can't. I can't even talk about it.
Now that is upbeat to you. Rachel, what would be upbeat to you?
So we've got full-on band going on, like drums, guitar, bass, singers.
Right. I need to
everything.
come to one of your worships on one Sunday when it's coming back, when they're
Yeah,
back.
you definitely
See,
should.
we used to go to I'm rubbish, when we were really young, you know, across from the Airdrie Sheriff Court. It's the only way there's a little church there. We used to go there when we were younger, and we used to have these tapes that were like called Kids Praise, and it was the music. And like the one that just came in my head there was like, praise God, give thanks to the Father above. Da 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 da. And I loved it. Like, I
Yeah.
still remember them from years ago, even though I've never been to that church for so long, because they were so memorable, because they were so upbeat and joyful. And
Oh yeah, that reminds me,
you
actually,
know, like,
my grandparents had a video that me and my sister watched, and it was called Salty, like the
yeah, Salty was in it. Yeah, that's Kids Praise. Yeah,
and those songs were amazing.
they were, and it was Salty. That's exactly who it
I
was.
feel like
that was
anyone
part
in
of all
the
this.
comments that knows who Salty is needs to tell us.
No, but they were so memorable. I actually lost the tape that we had, and that's gone back so many years, but I think I found a couple of them like through like YouTube or something, because I was so desperate to find these songs again, because they're just so joyful and happy.
That's kids stuff that's amazing, but even like all the hymns that we sing are all not all upbeat. I mean, there are some really good upbeat ones, but I mean, it's all kind of played. I think I'm quite lucky in the church that I go to now. There's so much talented musicians that are all like family. Well, some of them are family, but I mean, they've got the time to kind of gel together to play like they're like an actual band. They're incredible. So I think I think I'm lucky at my church to have that.
I know that when I've experienced going to another church, maybe there's sort of interfaith things that have happened, or especially food banks are, you know, there's a very Christian sort of undercurrent, and so when Christian organizations are getting together here, I get to have a wee sort of taste of what that looks like. And I mean, I remember, I mean, I don't think I would have said I was horrified, but I was very, very shocked that you're like, are they going to jump up and start rocking out in the altar? Like, what is happening here? And it just felt like so, shocking. Like, I was
Because it's
really, really
alien
shocked.
to us. It's
Because it
alien
was
to
alien.
us.
Now, was it good? Oh yeah.
I've been to like Christian concerts before, like where they are literally rocking out.
I could see going to a Christian concert. I could I will listen to Christian music, and some of it is quite rocky and upbeat and stuff like that. But to see that happening in a place of worship, I think was the really shocking thing to me. Like, is this allowed? Is this, there are drums and everything? But yeah, it's good. It's very, very cool. And the audience are clearly affected by it. The congregation are enjoying it, and it is clearly an act of worship. And I like that. Often I think the hymns in our churches are just sort of, you know, they should be worshipful.
Very respectful and peaceful.
Yeah.
I mean, remember I said to you, like, that they're revamping the hymn book, apparently. We're getting a new hymn book. And I said to Jane, maybe we'll get some more upbeat hymns, but I'm not holding on to that hope. But
if we don't get Mr. Brightside by the Killers in the new hymn book, I'm not going back. That's it. It's over. So any Mormon party that we have, any from Hogmanay to birthday party to, I don't know, the word Halloween party, the Killers has to feature in it. It's like it's 101. Anyway, so you testimonies. You guys have testimonies at your church. Now, a Mormon testimony. By the way, can I just say what I really enjoy is explaining things to Rachel and seeing your actual reaction. I think it's hysterical. So a testimony, a typical testimony would be, we really want to keep it short, so it would be ideally a minute or potentially less, but obviously people, no, see, look at the face. That's weird. It's weird. And it will.
Are you saying that our testimonies are a minute?
Oh, come on, if they could get down to a minute. Other than that, people are rambling.
But
right?
yeah, but they don't. They're not. That's not how they are.
Right? The perfect testimony is, I know the church is true. I know that Joseph Smith was a prophet. I know the Book of Mormon is true. And I know that we have a prophet on the earth today. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And that is the
In the name
testimony.
of our Lord and Saviour, and just to make it that little bit longer.
That is
even Jesus Christ.
Even we will add.
And I don't say that in any way to be disrespectful. I'm not, but that is just kind of how people in our church tend to go. They, instead of just in the name of Jesus Christ, amen, it tends to go on our Lord, Saviour, even Jesus, you know, and I'm just like, no, that's not what we're taught.
Speak properly, people. So tell me what you have told me before that someone, you know, maybe that a testimony's happening that day. What does that look like?
So I guess maybe in my church, I've never heard like, this is the definition of a testimony, but the way that the term is used. So to me, interpreting it from hearing people's testimonies in my church, it's like your experience with God and your relationship with God, and basically your testimony of your life and how you came to know God, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And one of the things that I've really, really loved in church is hearing people's life stories that they have been through some terrible, terrible things, horrible things, addiction, just had a terrible time, and how they've come to know God in that time of need, and how that's completely changed their life. Is just, these life-changing stories are just, I just love hearing them. I can't get enough. But it doesn't even need to be that. Like it can be, I've heard some really, really touching stories at church of people kind of losing their way in their relationship with God, and how they've kind of found their way back. So that's kind of what we would call a testimony.
Yeah. And so we have the first Sunday of every month is devoted to fasting and testimony. So the worship meeting that Sunday would be a testimony meeting. So there will be maybe periods of silence, but as people feel impressed to do it, they will take the stand and will bear their testimony. And so it's lovely. But if you know, to be really blunt about it and say the sort of thing that's we shouldn't really say, when someone's maybe bearing their testimony frequently of recovery from addiction or trauma, loss of children, even as a congregation, we can end up sort of rolling our eyes and thinking, oh, again, are we going to hear this? You know, which is awful. So I think what happens is we end up taking people's experiences and testimonies for granted, which is
I think as well.
Sorry, it's not always what you'd said. Basically, the perfect testimony would be about what you just said. Yeah. It's not always that. So people will speak about their experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say that's not what we're taught to do. You know, like you said, we are taught to share a short, brief testimony of the things that we know or believe, But
It's
and I
belief.
yeah, that's right. And I think there are times where it's okay. Now, I probably have been guilty of this in my lifetime of going up and sharing experiences, but I wouldn't say that it's to the point of going too in depth about, you know, addiction or anything like that. I've maybe shared a nice experience that I've had at the temple or something that I feel has really encouraged my faith to become more, but it's not like all the time. And I think that's sometimes what some people's testimony becomes. And as you say, it just becomes that ramble and that, you know, and I don't mean it disrespectful, but sometimes you think you see them get up and you know what's coming, and you kind of think, oh, and I feel so bad that I feel that way, but it's just because that's not what testimony meeting is for me. That's not what I need it to be.
And yeah, I quite like hearing the experience-driven testimony. Now, that said, we all, I think, as a congregation, I may be exaggerating, but certainly for me and for my friends at church, when we see someone going up to the stand on a Sunday and sharing a testimony that's unconventional, and you know, where they say, I don't know that the church is true, or I've had you know, an experience that I found really difficult that I don't really know what to do with. Those to me are golden. So when it
Absolutely.
gets really, really real, and I think that's what I'm liking about your you know, hearing about a testimony. It's very real. It's a very lived experience rather than all of these statements of
it's so nice to hear, and it's refreshing to hear. So it's not maybe members of my church's testimony I've heard, it's we or people in my church are know of or I've helped out with certain charities, like Christian charities that maybe help specific groups of people, like ex-addicts and stuff like that. And it's their testimonies we're hearing, but inviting them into our church. And so when you go to church, you don't expect to hear a certain dialect, a certain accent, and it just hearing them speak the way they've spoke their whole life, but saying what God's done in their life is just incredible.
Yeah. See, I think that's wonderful too, because I mean, I could be speaking out of turn here, but in my mind, I'm thinking that, you know, unless, you know, you're kind of member, are you supposed to get up and share your testimony? Or have I got that wrong completely?
No, it's more so. In my experience, with the church that I'm currently in just now, it's not like a set time where people will be invited up to share their testimony. It's more
they're asked beforehand.
They're asked beforehand. They're asked beforehand. It might be that we often get guest speakers in on a Sunday. Maybe there's not been something programmed for that Sunday, so they'll maybe ask someone to share their testimony that Sunday and maybe share a few thoughts and link it back into the Bible or a teaching in the Bible or something like that. But then they would have kind of heard these other testimonies with people that have got kind of other life experiences and how they've come to know God later in their life. That's maybe been at events out with a church service on a Sunday, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I have a couple of questions. So first of all, around the time of when, you know, in Scotland we would have, and the UK we would have festival time, things like Tea in the Park. Has anybody famous, such as Brandon Flowers, ever rocked up to your church on a Sunday?
Oh, I'm going to sound terrible for not remembering this name.
I don't mean to brag, but you know, Brandon Flowers from the Killers, like if he's in town, will just, you know, rock up to our church. So, you know, I feel like that gives us the edge here.
I have a big name, but I can't remember. No, it's a big name in Christian music.
Right.
Not on the same level as Brandon Flowers.
So
I'm not even going to embarrass myself by trying to think of the name. So, but yes, we did have quite a big star at our church.
So tell me, what are the things that draw you to your church? What kind of experiences do you get to have there? And I'm thinking about some of the cool things that you've told me, like about what Christmas worships have looked like, and you know, all of those kind of good things.
Let me think. So something that we went to in the last couple of years was praise gatherings. So it's pretty much every person who enjoys singing in every church across Scotland comes together to create one big massive choir, and they put a concert on in Glasgow. And I wasn't part of the choir, but I went to watch it, to watch the performance, and it was incredible. So good. That's a highlight, definitely. And people in my church, members of my church, are really heavily involved in that and organising it. So I think that's why I heard of it. So yeah, that's definitely amazing. I can't wait till they're able to do another one. Another thing, we do a church weekend away every year where we go to a house in Pitlochry in Scotland and just spend a weekend as a church and having fellowship with each other, having dinner together. We put services on each night and just have a bit of fun. I love do that. I've only managed to go the once. I've normally was working, so I've only managed to go once. But yeah, I can't wait till we're able to do that again.
And do you guys have a building that you meet in?
Well, not currently. So my church was renting a Church of Scotland building for a long time. So we were using that building. It got sold just a little bit before lockdown, and we were homeless. So we started using a primary school hall on a Sunday, which was obviously quite difficult and restricted us in terms of what we could do, because we could only get it for certain hours on a Sunday. So there was no kind of it was more difficult to have event like youth fellowship nights or additional kind of like Bible studies or whatever. We started doing home Bible studies and stuff. It was just quite difficult not having an actual building to do all the kind of extra stuff. But they were looking into properties in the area that they wanted to stay in. And I think they're still in the process of doing that. Obviously, COVID came along. Nobody was at church. It was all online. And just as kind of churches have went back, we still don't have a building as such just now.
Is there a fund for? Are people being asked to donate to that, or?
I think, as far as I know, it's the churches kind of put out a special kind of collection for the church building situation. I'm not aware of a fundraising.
Sure.
thing.
If you find out anything about that, let us know. And
Will do. Yeah, I'll find out, definitely.
Obviously having a home is, that set aside for worship is important.
Definitely.
What brings you to this space? The Mormon space is kind of niche. So yeah, what you making of it?
What I'm making of it? It's definitely very interesting to me. I wouldn't say like there's a few things that have shocked me, yes. And I'm definitely learning a lot.
Give us some examples. Tell us what you're experiencing. This is what our audience are fascinated about.
So I think, I don't know, it's because growing up in a church and just always kind of accepting that what I learned, I've just kind of accepted. Never really questioned it. Obviously, my faith has been challenged, like I've spoke about, but always kind of stuck with it and had a relationship with God. The kind of institution, would you call it that?
Yes, absolutely.
That and all these rules, if you like, in terms of how churches run, it's just a very different experience to what I've had.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's fascinating. So what we're going to do, if anyone, I'm aware that we're on a new time slot tonight and people may have questions for Rachael and the team, do pop them in the chat, and we can get to them at any point. But I want to talk to you a little bit about about some of those maybe rules or things that are kind of Mormon-y. just kind of see what you make of them. So most people have heard in the UK would associate, if you've heard of Mormons, the word polygamy is not too far behind. So when you think of Alana, when you have you had any people making that association? Like, have you grown up as a Mormon?
Yeah, when I was younger, probably my teenage years, I had people say, "Oh, you practice polygamy," or not necessarily that, like you have more than one wife. In your church, men have more than one wife, and I was like, "No, we've that's not us. That's some other break off." Because I didn't know. I didn't know. Like, I think in the background I'd heard of polygamy, but I didn't fully understand it. I didn't know what it was, and even now I'm only really truly beginning to understand like how awful that was.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah, I
really
did.
good.
People used to say it to me, and I was horrified. Like, no, that's not our church. Like, absolutely not. Like, that's some break off. They have more than one wife. We don't. Which is true. We don't now,
So
unless it's in the
yeah,
eternities. But anyway, that's a whole other
there's a lot of our
podcast.
church history that members are still finding out themselves. There's a lot of church history that even the church hasn't explored and things yet. There, records still being found and looked at. So yeah, we're going to talk about some stuff. So for example, Alana, have you heard this one? Polygamy. The reason for polygamy, that it was needed in the early church, is because there was an overabundance of single women who needed husbands.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was help the widows. You've heard that one?
And the thing is, when you're growing up in a church and you're told this, you
Exactly.
believe it. You believe it, because why would you not believe it? Like, I mean, the other common one that I hear all the time is, yeah, but times were different back then.
Yeah.
When it comes to marrying younger girls and things like that.
They
Like,
weren't that
times were different back then.
No, they weren't. Josh is asking, Rachel, have you ever attended a Mormon church?
Not a church service. I believe Airdrie Ward, Jane's Ward. It was
The Easter thing.
yeah,
that
it was
we
like an
did?
Easter
Yeah.
event. It wasn't a church service. It was an event. There was kind of people singing and different things. But that is the only time.
The only time, yeah. I've never recommended that you come to church. If there was a good thing on, I would recommend it. But,
I'm going to go to hell for this.
Okay, so here we go. A check of every census record in Illinois and Utah from 1840 through to 1900 reveals that, like all Western frontier locations, men outnumbered the women by a good margin. So there you go. That one there about there being so many women that needed needed the men to come and help wasn't true. And also, women could be single, and that was.
Isn't there many single women now in the world? Does that mean we have to practice polygamy and have more than one wife or one husband?
Well, if it was about providing for wives, for women, polygamy didn't really work out very well for that. Lots of
I have a question.
We're destitute. So
do you know of Mormons that did have more than one wife, or do you not, like, is that a total?
So if anyone who's Mormon today, specifically Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, would be excommunicated. So that's totally not allowed.
Okay.
That said, Mormon is an umbrella term, so there's lots of different types of Mormonism. So yeah, Community of Christ, not okay. That wouldn't be okay. But
there is some big break off church in America though, right? That do allow it, because I remember watching a film or something about this guy. I can't remember his name, but I'm sure there was a film made about him.
Yeah, there's incredibly sinister. So we have polygamous communities in Short Creek in America. They are not Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So yeah, Mormonism, I think that's actually really cool that you mentioned that, because although Mormonism, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, distances themselves from polygamy, we are still very much part of that that's our roots, that's our history. We have to own that.
And another conversation, Rachel, is when we'll talk to you about eternal polygamy. So it is still there in the forefront of the church.
Oh, do
I'm
that.
sorry,
Yeah.
but I have to
No,
say,
you're
like,
right.
I was horrified when I heard this, that we do, in some sense, practice polygamy. We have a prophet who's, is it the prophet? Am I right in saying that? Who's sealed to two women, which states that in the next life he's going to be with two wives. So, you know,
So the way it works is if
but women can't be married to more than one man.
Yeah,
They can't be sealed to more than one man.
That's right. So when you're married, if you are sealed in the temple, that means that your marriage is going to continue after you die. And for Mormons, we're kind of like, this is a unique claim, a unique truth claim, or that we have. Kind of overlooking the fact that most people who are married and have faith believe that they'll be together after they die. So, there's that. But when we go to the temple, we believe that we're going to be sealed and that we'll still that marriage relationship will continue. If the wife dies or if a divorce happens, the man can be sealed again. So you could potentially, in the afterlife, be in a polygamous relationship. As Josh points out, men could be sealed to multiple wives, such as the prophet. Yeah.
But that's again so problematic. It's okay for men, but not for women. But that's for a whole other podcast. I'll not go on a rant about that.
We
We'll
will
let you hear all night.
We could. So, okay, more urban legends. Okay. In fact, let's just mention this one that okay, if you are going to be married, go on a mission, let's talk about going on a trip to the temple. If anything happens that that prevents that, what's the cause, Alana?
It's Satan. It's Satan. He's trying to stop you from going to the temple. He's trying to stop you from going on a mission.
And I mean, is he? Maybe he is. It would depend, I suppose, on how you view Satan and how you view. And I don't know. It's
Where's the proof, though?
well, what happened the last time we went to the temple together before you decided that you weren't going back.
Was that with my car?
Yeah.
Yeah, my car the morning that we're supposed to leave decides to go and just not work. And so I was like, I'm so sorry, Jane, because Jane obviously doesn't get the chance to go away too often and due to family responsibilities and things. And so I was feeling so bad, and I'm pleading with my mechanic, please, if you can, try and get this fixed today. I'm supposed to be taking my friend away, and bless him, he did.
But like a good Mormon, I'm like, Alana, this is not your fault. This is Satan. See,
it's nothing to do with the mechanics of the car. That was something just had went wrong with the car that needed fixed because it's an old car.
Yeah. It's and see, I don't have those types of views of Satan, but yeah, Satan gets thrown under the bus all the time.
Yep, poor Satan.
In fairness, so does God at times when when the narrative suits us. Okay, tell me if you've ever heard this urban legend, Alana. When they went to install elevators in the Salt Lake Temple, they broke down a wall where they wanted to put it and found that Brigham Young had directed an elevator shaft to be built decades before elevators had even been invented.
Never heard of that, no.
You've never heard of it?
Never.
Okay. Trust me, our audience have. So the fact is that it's an urban legend. That it's actually
what do people get though from starting these rumors, from making these things up? Like, I just don't get it. I just think
so. Faith promoting stories happen through
Josh, absolutely. Satan messed up my car. Yep, for sure. Needless to say, I no longer have that car now.
Yeah, because it's Satan's car. Yeah. Well, because faith promoting stories aren't just a Mormon thing. They happen everywhere, and everywhere, we get urban legends all the time. Scottish history is full of urban legends, and we're going to talk about some of those in the future as well. But they're designed really to promote faith. whether or not they're true. And if it sounds good, and then we share it with someone else.
But
So
can't we just promote faith by telling true stories?
Well,
Faith
we
promoting
can.
stories that are actually true. Like, I've heard so many things recently that of faith promoting stories told by our leaders that are not true. And I think, or that are maybe not able to be proven the way they say they are. So I think, why are we doing that? Why can we not just, like Rachel said in her church, they talk about, like me hearing someone's story about how they've went through all that trauma, they've went through addiction, and how they've found God. To me, that's a faith promoting story. I would relate more to that than some made up story about an elevator shaft.
And it's making me think that maybe I need to look into my church history a bit more and see if there's things like this I've just never ever heard of.
We could. So there is the general Christian one that now let me think. This one often gets shared around about Easter, and roughly the story is when Jesus left when he was resurrected and leaves the tomb, that his what do you call it, the cloth that would be over his face and bandages that he's wrapped in are all folded up.
Yeah, I have heard that.
The association with that is that it means in Jewish tradition that it means that if you were having a meal and you just sort of bumful up all your napkins and things like that, it would you finished the meal. But if it's folded, it means that you're coming back. And so that gets shared a lot, that this means that Jesus is, it sounds great, it should be,
I was about to say, that sounds brilliant,
doesn't it? And that's why we have a faith promoting story, because actually there is no such Jewish tradition that states that, right? Because why should a fact get in,
it does start to make you think, like, you just assume that everything you're taught at church is true, and that there could have been a little story or something thrown in somewhere that all your life you've not questioned, and who knows if it was made up.
Well, the good thing is we have people, who are adept at the internet now. So we've got NeverMo who's fact checking things for us. We've got things that we can check out, and so I think these things are starting to die out a little bit as we're sort of becoming more aware that they're not always true. Okay, what else do we have? We have the story in our church about the child with Down syndrome, the young man with Down syndrome, who is taken by his parents to go and get his patriarchal blessing. Now, patriarchal blessing is it's a blessing that is given by someone who's called as a stake patriarch, where they kind of give you a pattern for things that are going to happen throughout your life. A Mormon horoscope, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's something that people value. It's something that people prepare for, and so it's the story is that this young boy gets taken for his patriarchal blessing, and during this blessing, he is told that he is a righteous spirit, that he was part of the, what do you call it, the guards that escorted Satan out of heaven in the pre-existence. And then the young boy's disabilities are sort of taken away for a time, and he's able to prophesy, praise God, all of that type of thing. And that's another one of our Mormon urban legends. Now, we don't have any sources for that. We don't have any, which is sort of what brings the red flags, is there's nothing to sort of back that up. It would be very odd, because children, youth, adults who have intellectual disabilities are often not accountable, and so you have to be accountable before you would receive a patriarchal blessing. So it should throw up a few red flags. But these are the kinds of stories that it's now that is something I would put categorically in the what do we call it? Disability, emotional porn sort of section. You know, that we like a good uplifting story when it comes to our youth and people with special needs. Okay. We have so many stories about temple garments. We have so many stories about keeping people safe from fire, keeping people from injuries and wounds. For our audience who are not watching on YouTube, who are watching on YouTube, I think we've just lost Rachel, so we may have an internet connection issue from us for Rachel. So if she's able to rejoin us, we'll catch up with her just shortly. But if not, she will be hanging around on social media if you want to chat some more or have any follow-up questions. The urban legend about the New York City Fire Department getting in touch with the church to find out what material do they use to make temple garments, because apparently they have heard so many stories about them being fireproof. Yeah.
Seriously?
I love that we're getting these reactions. No worries, Rachel's laptop died. If you want to rejoin us, Rachel, if you're able to do that, we'll see you in a couple of minutes, and if not, then we'll catch you online. But yes, that's yeah. Josh mentions the three.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, these are definitive Mormon stuff. I would have loved to have seen Rachel react to some of these. So, Alana, can you remember anything about the three Nephites?
No, that's why I was wondering about it, because I don't know anything about that.
You don't.
Do you know the story?
These are things that you just block out of your mind.
I may have heard of it, but
No,
I have no recollection of any of that.
So I'm just aware I'm sitting in the dark. I feel like we should be getting some scary, urban legends.
Right, let's get the internet up. Let's have a look.
You mentioned Satan and the lights went out. Okay, so three Nephite stories. So in the Book of Mormon, we have three people who were called by Jesus and who wanted to not taste death, who wanted to not die. They wanted to stay on the earth until Jesus came back, and who we can suppose that they are doing their thing on the earth.
Oh, something about this is ringing a little bit. Yeah.
So we get lots of pioneer stories about, so one in particular, someone's really concerned about going off to serve a mission, wakes up in the morning, their fields are plowed, when they're being sick. We've had sightings and legends all over the place for the three Nephites.
So they're miraculously plowing fields in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. There are stories about sister missionaries who would later find out that they had knocks on the door of a serial killer. And when the serial killer is questioned about, well, why didn't you kill these sister missionaries who came to knock on your door? It's because there were three men standing behind them.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The three Nephites get around.
There to defend God's truth.
Now, can I just say that, if there are any Nephites, kicking up and down the area who want to assist in any way, I will happily accept that assistance and then bear testimony of the truthfulness of that.
I have some hedges just out front needing cut. If you feel like doing that in the middle of the night, I'll happily accept. And my grass needs a little cut as well. Go for it.
I mean, this is the thing. It's Maybe there are. I don't know. I couldn't bear witness to the fact that they're not. I don't know.
Josh says you're going to wait forever. I just thought I would give it a try, just in case.
Exactly. I just want to cover all my bases here. But hey,
And hi, hello to Stephen as well. He's just saying hello there.
good to meet you, Stephen. If you guys have any urban legends that you would like to share, do please jump in with them. Okay, Satan has dominion over the water.
I have heard that one because on my mission, we were told that missionaries were not allowed to swim for that reason.
Yes.
Because Satan has power over the waters, and I believed it wholeheartedly.
Well, so that comes from the Book of Mormon, where sorry, I apologize, the Doctrine and Covenants, where it does state that the reason that missionaries were given for not being able to go swimming, this is where we go into urban legend territory, because I don't know, people would have made that jump or that connection. It's because Satan is in charge of the waters, and and realistically, missionaries going swimming is something that potentially is gonna up your insurance. It's maybe carries slightly more risks, so but yeah, Mormons like to keep a hold of this.
Yeah, I think on my mission as well, we were even told that we couldn't even go ice skating and things like that. Like on our P days, I think a missionary had been injured, and again, it was all Satan, and so we weren't allowed to do any kind of sport that was like that. Yeah.
Okay. How about this one? In fact, okay, so I'll do another. You know what? Let's do this one just now. This is not fair. Okay, Alana, the LDS Church has no paid ministry. I'm putting
Sorry, that was a bad outburst. I believed that my whole life. I taught that to people, and it makes me so angry. I'm sorry. I laugh, but then I get angry because I believed that my whole life growing up in the church. I taught it on my mission. I taught it to, not taught it, but I told it to people who questioned what makes our church different. And now I find out it's a load of BS.
Well,
of course there's paid ministry.
Yeah.
But they class it as, what is it they call it? Not a living allowance. What is it? Like
a modest stipend.
You know, like, but the money they get is crazy.
Well, I wouldn't call it a modest stipend personally.
No.
And the benefits that are included. Yeah, I don't think I would suggest that that's not a claim that we can make. So from a certain level and for certain callings, absolutely we could not claim that we have that we have an unpaid ministry. Okay, how about this one? Relief Society is the largest women's organization in the world.
Is that not true?
So
I've always, again, something I've always been taught growing up in the church. And again, I don't have any reason to not believe that, do I? I mean, obviously now I'm starting to question most things I'm hearing because I find out a lot of it's, you know, I see that Josh is saying this is why critical thinking is so important. And I'm now getting to that stage where I am starting to think for myself and I am starting to look and explore things. But why would I have reason to dispute that when we're being taught it or told it?
Yeah, well, I mean, someone makes a claim like that, and so what would be the criteria for membership of the Relief Society? Is, you know, you don't sign up to that separately. You don't you don't necessarily. Yeah, there's nothing you have to do. You're a member of the church. You are female. You're in Relief Society. So simply by being a Mormon woman, you're in, if you're in Relief Society, and that qualifies you to for us to say that there are so many women, that makes us the largest organization. Well, there's actually the Women's Institute. There are lots of other faiths with women's arms that have more numbers than us.
Do you see Stephen's urban legend that he's popped up?
Will you read that for us?
So one of the urban legends I heard was of a missionary who took his garments off and challenged Satan. He was found dead and his hair had turned grey.
I mean, I don't want to say it didn't. I'm sitting in the dark here. If Satan pops up behind my shoulder and I am found tomorrow, I'm not going to dispute that. I'm just going to let that speak for itself. Okay.
So how would you challenge Satan though? On
Hey,
the end, son.
hey Satan, you suck.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it sounds so far fetched to me.
Well, let's do another garment story. Okay, so there is the story of the old man who owns a laundry service, who missionaries, when they are having their laundry done, realize their garments haven't been returned, and they go to the store, the laundry service, and in the window their garments are on display. They speak to the man who owns the store, and the man tells them he's not going to return them until they explain what they're for and what their purpose is and everything to do with them. And they won't. They contact their mission president, who then goes and tries to explain to the man that they really need to return them, that this is sacred. The man still will not. And then, as the mission president is leaving, he dusts his feet, shakes the dust from his feet as he leaves. And later, the shop is destroyed by fire.
Wow.
Wow.
What an amazing story.
Don't pee off a mission president. Yeah. So the dusting of the feet is it's something that we can hear about, but apparently it means there's no chance for you. You suck. And
Yep.
yeah. What is it you would call? Where would you call hell if you were a Scottish kid? The bad fire. You would go to the bad fire. Tell me
Big
you
bad
know
fire.
that one.
Yeah. You're
Right.
going to the big bad fire, yeah.
The big, well, yeah, we would call it the Burney fire or the bad fire. Okay, yeah, so he went to the bad fire, I can only assume. So then we have, okay, so we talked about no paid ministry. Okay. Oh, how about we'll maybe do this as the last one. After Joseph Smith was killed, the apostles knew Brigham Young was the successor by his transformation into the image of Joseph.
Can you tell me that again, please?
So when Brigham Young so Joseph has died. Everybody's like, who's going to be the prophet now? And at a conference, Brigham Young is speaking, and his face takes on the appearance of Joseph Smith. His voice sounds like Joseph Smith. And so it's confirmation for everybody that Brigham Young is supposed to be the next prophet.
And I take it there's no evidence of this then? If it's,
well, there is evidence of it. However, so we study this fairly regularly in our cycle. I think when we're studying the Doctrine and Covenants, so it should have come up earlier this year. But yeah, so the first thing is the Mormon succession crisis lasted for several years. I think it was about 2 years. The records of this happening, there are no contemporary records. No one went home and wrote in their journal, "We're amazed. We just saw this incredible thing happening." In the many years that followed, though, people started to relate this story, but there are no contemporary records. So I would suggest it's possibly something that that became a story that's been circulated to support Brigham Young's claim to succession.
Yeah. I guess it goes back to me. See, this is where I'm into watching all this stuff, like a bit of transfiguration. It sounds like it's going on there. you know, when the face
yeah.
distorts to be someone else.
Yeah,
Which
well,
again,
apparently
you're
it was
like,
20 years after that meeting that we started to hear the stories of this happening. So that's, that's
yeah, I mean, surely if something like that happened, someone would take note of it in a journal. Someone would go and shout it from the rooftops. Like, wouldn't, I mean, if that happened to me, I'd be like, what the freak, man? Like, did you just see what happened right there? Like,
it's
I would be telling
confirmation.
everyone. Like, so for there to be no record of it in anyone's journal, yeah, it sounds to me like it's something someone's made up. But who am I? I'm just a little lady in Scotland.
As are we both. So we are going to come back and talk about a couple of specific urban legends that that are actually pretty cool, that I think our audience are going to like, as it relates to faith in Scotland and some of our history. There's some pretty cool things we're going to talk about in the next episode. So, but I think for tonight, that especially as I got to admit, guys, it's very dark here, and I'm starting to. I may need someone to come and dedicate the house again, because I don't know. We did a little bit of insult in there, so I feel like I may. I don't know. I may get haunted in my sleep. Okay, everyone. I hope you enjoyed meeting Rachel. She really is amazing. We love her, and I know that as I sound like a missionary. I know that as you I know that as you guys are getting to know the kind of things that we're doing on social media a bit more, Rachel is the person who is really spearheading that. So she's making sure that that we are doing our thing on TikTok, on Instagram, what else? YouTube, Facebook. She's keeping us straight, and she's making sure that if you guys have got any questions, anything that you want us to talk about, that you can reach us. She's doing incredible work for us, and we're excited to have her as part of our team. It's so good, I think, when we we know the stories, we know what the culture looks like, to get that reaction of someone who's like, what are you
Really?
guys doing? It just kills me. I just love it. So thank you for being with us tonight. Alana, do you want to take us out?
Absolutely. So again, just thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in, and to anyone who may tune in later and watch back. We really appreciate all your help and support and questions and love. And I want to say a big thank you to Jane for making this possible for us. I feel like I've got a bit of a voice now. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Yep, hit it. Share it with your friends, or anyone who you think may appreciate the things that we talk about. So absolutely, we hope to see you all with us again. Are we?
Yeah, we should be back next
Wednesday or Sunday, or are we still to confirm? Or
you know what, we're gonna have a meeting to talk about, because it's holiday time here. This is a pretty cool time, and I want to share some of those urban legends as they relate to our holidays. So we may not do a live episode. We may do something recorded.
Okay, so just keep your eyes peeled. I don't know if that's just a Scottish saying, is it? Or is it? I never know. I'm always wary that people are like, what is she talking about? Anyway, just keep a lookout on Facebook, on Instagram, and all as I say, we're on TikTok as well. And we will keep you updated with what's going on next. So thank you once again. We love you all. We want to bless your journey, whatever that may be, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.